The air inside the Tonight Show studio was thick with anticipation. Viewers around the world had tuned in, expecting the usual blend of humor and light-hearted banter. What they got instead was an unforgettable clash that would be replayed for years to come. Before we unravel this volatile moment between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jimmy Kimmel, take a second to hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments. Where do you stand on celebrities walking off interviews? Now, let's dive into the storm that unfolded live on national television. The energy was electric as the studio cameras panned across the crowd. Seated in the guest chair, larger than life, was Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Austrian oak himself. Even in his 70s, Arnold's presence was undeniable. He was there to promote his latest project, a hard-hitting documentary focused on climate change activism. The audience greeted him with roaring applause, fully expecting an evening of charming anecdotes and motivational talk. Behind his desk, Jimmy Kimmel wore a grin that millions recognized, playful, cheeky, with just a hint of provocation. "Ladies and gentlemen, Arnold Schwarzenegger." Jimmy's voice boomed as the applause peaked. "The Terminator himself, here to talk about saving the planet." "Classic California, Arnold," Kimmel quipped, his smirk lingering. Arnold responded with a warm smile, waving appreciatively at the crowd. "Thank you, Jimmy." His voice was steady, friendly. "It's great to be here. And yes, I am passionate about environmental issues. It's something that affects us all." Kimmel shuffled his note cards theatrically, his posture shifting ever so slightly as he leaned forward. Right, he nodded, pausing just enough for the room's energy to settle. "But before we jump into the serious stuff, there's been a little buzz making rounds. You know the internet these days." His grin stretched wider, bordering on mischievous. Arnold's smile faltered, just slightly, a flicker that sharp eyes could catch. "Jimmy," he said calmly, "I thought we were here to talk about the documentary, the environmental efforts, real issues." "Oh, we'll get to that," Kimmel waved off nonchalantly. "But come on, Arnold. You've been around long enough to know people are curious about the man behind the image, not just the glossy PR version." A subtle shift rippled through the audience. The usual applause was gone, replaced by an awkward hush. Arnold leaned forward, the wooden guest chair creaking under his weight. "What are you trying to get at, Jimmy?" His tone sharpened, Austrian accent thickening, a trademark sign of his rising irritation. Jimmy's grin grew toothy, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "Oh, nothing sinister, Arnold. Just a few old stories resurfacing. Behavior on movie sets, your time as governor. Don't you think your fans deserve to hear your side?" Arnold's jaw tensed. "Jimmy," his voice dropped a note lower, a subtle warning threading through. "I came here in good faith, to talk about real problems, not ancient gossip." Kimmel chuckled, but there was no warmth in the sound. "Come on, Arnold, you know how this works. It's a talk show. We talk about everything, even the uncomfortable stuff. That's what keeps things interesting." The cameras zoomed in, capturing every twitch in Arnold's features, every pulse of his temple. The audience, normally quick with laughter, sat in silence, sensing the brewing storm. Arnold's massive hands tightened around the chair's arms. "Interesting," he repeated, voice deliberate. "Is that what this is about? Making good television?" Jimmy's smile widened like a predator circling prey. "Come on, Arnold. You've been in the business for decades. Ratings matter. You know that better than anyone." The mood turned. Arnold's posture straightened, his eyes losing their earlier warmth. "Ratings," he said slowly, the word tasting bitter. "You ambush me with baseless rumors for ratings." Jimmy leaned back, exuding mock innocence. "Not ambush, Arnold. Transparency. Accountability. People have questions. Accountability." Arnold's tone turned cold, the famous composure slipping. "Let's talk about your accountability, Jimmy. You told my team this was about environmental activism. Saving our planet." "And it is," Jimmy said with a shrug. "But people also want to know about the man behind the cause." The tension was suffocating now. Arnold's face hardened, his years in Hollywood and politics sharpening his instincts for confrontation. "Jimmy, I came to discuss solutions, the future of humanity, not to feed your ratings machine with irrelevant gossip." Jimmy's chair squeaked as he shifted, voice gaining a sharper edge. "You can't cherry-pick what the public hears, Arnold. You're a public figure. You've lived in the limelight for decades. People want honesty. Accountability." Arnold leaned forward, every muscle coiled like a spring. "Decades of service, of building, of contributing, and you boil it down to cheap innuendo." Jimmy's tone sharpened. "It's not just me, Arnold. It's out there. People are talking. Stories, allegations, your fans deserve clarity. Stories. Arnold's grip tightened until his knuckles turned white. All you have are rumors, Jimmy. You're acting like a gossip columnist, not a talk show host. The room froze. Even the seasoned crew members, accustomed to the unpredictable energy of live television, stood rigid, aware something unprecedented was unfolding. Jimmy's grin faded, replaced by a sterner glare. You don't get to dodge questions, Arnold. You've made mistakes, and you should own them. Arnold's laugh was hollow, humorless. Mistakes? I've spent my life improving lives, pushing boundaries, addressing real problems. Yet here you are, dredging up unverified stories like some desperate tabloid. Jimmy's expression hardened. This is what talk shows are about, confronting the whole truth, not just the parts you like. Arnold's body shifted forward, casting a long, intimidating shadow over the desk. You don't want truth, Jimmy. You want spectacle. You want a headline. Jimmy raised his hands in mock surrender. Relax, Arnold. Just a conversation. No, Jimmy, Arnold snapped, his voice rising, slicing through the uncomfortable air. This is not a conversation. It's a circus. There was a moment, a split second where time seemed to pause. The camera operators exchanged glances, the audience held its breath, and the tension hit its peak. Arnold stood up, towering, unyielding. His chair slid back, its legs screeching against the studio floor. The room gasped. I'm done, Arnold declared, voice booming across the studio. Jimmy's playful smirk disappeared, replaced by genuine shock. Arnold, don't be ridiculous. Sit back down. Arnold remained standing, unblinking. No, Jimmy. I will not be part of this charade. Jimmy's voice shifted, taking on a mocking lilt. What happened to I'll be back, Arnold? Are you really going to walk out like some diva? Arnold's jaw clenched, shoulders squaring like a soldier preparing for battle. His voice dropped, low but forceful. You think this is ego? You think this is weakness? Jimmy's grin flickered, unease creeping into his features. Isn't it? You're storming off because of a few hard questions. Arnold's reply came swiftly, like a hammer striking steel. You haven't asked a single real question, Jimmy. Just gossip, just slime, all for ratings. The room grew heavier, breaths were held, hearts pounded. Everyone watching knew this was no longer just television. This was history in the making. Jimmy's smile was gone now, his mask of playful arrogance slipping to reveal something raw and unsettled beneath. He leaned forward, gripping the edge of his desk as if grounding himself in the storm he had unleashed. Arnold, you've been in politics, you've been in Hollywood. You know how this game works. The public deserves to hear the full story. Arnold took a slow step forward, his towering frame casting an imposing shadow across Jimmy's desk. The full story, he repeated, voice low and deadly calm. You've offered no story, no facts, no clarity. Just riddles, rumors, and tabloid innuendo. Jimmy's throat bobbed as he swallowed, trying to reclaim control of the moment. People talk, Arnold. Stories don't appear from thin air. Some things have been said about your time on set, about how you behaved as governor. Arnold's fingers flexed at his sides, his massive hands curling into restrained fists. You're not talking about truth, Jimmy. You're talking about whispers in the dark, gossip recycled through clickbait articles and anonymous sources. Multiple accounts, Jimmy pressed, his words coming quicker now, as if trying to push through Arnold's towering resistance. Patterns that people have noticed. Patterns that don't go away. Arnold's voice exploded like a cannon across the studio, causing some in the audience to visibly flinch. Patterns. His chest expanded with each heavy breath. Let's talk about the real patterns, Jimmy. The pattern of talk show hosts who trick their guests, who abandon professionalism in favor of cheap shots and manufactured drama. Jimmy forced a laugh, but it came out brittle, cracking at the edges. Come on, Arnold, you're deflecting. You're avoiding accountability. Arnold took another step forward, the space between them shrinking rapidly. Studio security tensed at the corners of the room, though no one dared intervene. Accountability. Arnold's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenching so hard it seemed to tremble. You called my team. You told them we would discuss climate change, the future of our planet, the survival of humanity. You lied, Jimmy. You set this trap, not for honesty, but for spectacle. Jimmy was losing ground, and he knew it. His fingers fumbled through his note cards, desperate to regain his composure. Arnold, this is television. People want to know the truth about who you are, not just the polished version you parade around. Arnold's chest rumbled with a laugh devoid of any amusement. You don't care about truth, Jimmy. You care about shock value. About spiking ratings with controversy. The crowd was silent, the energy in the room charged with tension. Arnold's glare was unrelenting. "You came after me under false pretenses, and you dare speak of accountability?" Jimmy's grin was gone, replaced with something bordering on fear. "Arnold, you're blowing this out of proportion." "Am I?" Arnold cut in sharply. "Then be specific, Jimmy. What exactly am I being accused of? Don't dance around it. Don't hide behind vague statements. Name it." Jimmy's mouth opened, but no words came out. He flipped his cards again, eyes darting, searching for salvation in the printed notes. Arnold pressed on, merciless. "One specific allegation, Jimmy. Just one. You have none." Jimmy's face flushed red, beads of sweat forming at his temples. "It's public knowledge, lots of reports." "Reports from where?" Arnold's voice was like iron, unforgiving. "Name one credible source." Jimmy fumbled, voice cracking. "Well, there've been stories, outlets, people talking." "Name one," Arnold barked, his tone echoing through the studio like thunder. The silence was suffocating. Jimmy squirmed in his seat, knowing full well he had walked into a fight completely unprepared. The studio audience, sensing blood in the water, watched breathlessly. Finally, Jimmy's voice came out, small, unconvincing. "People can look it up, it's out there." Arnold's lips curled into a cold smile. "Ah, so there it is. You have nothing. No sources. No facts. Just gossip you hope to amplify by dragging me into your circus." Jimmy sat frozen, his hand gripping his pen so tightly it trembled. Arnold straightened to his full height, muscles taut under his suit jacket. "Jimmy," he said, voice calm now, but no less powerful. "You have shown tonight why people lose faith in the media. Why respect for shows like this continues to evaporate." Jimmy tried to interject, but Arnold's presence was suffocating, overwhelming. "You turned an opportunity to educate millions about the dire threat of climate change into a pathetic tabloid stunt," Arnold continued, "reducing the most important conversation of our time to baseless accusations and innuendo." Jimmy cleared his throat, attempting a last-ditch defense. "Arnold, part of being a public figure is—" "No," Arnold snapped, his voice rising once again. "Part of being a public figure is using your platform to inspire change, to help those who need it most, to elevate important conversations. What you've done tonight is a disgrace." The room was thick with uncomfortable energy, the audience visibly shifting in their seats. Jimmy leaned forward, voice turning defensive. "Look, I'm just doing my job, Arnold. The audience wants honesty, transparency." Arnold scoffed. "You're hiding behind your audience. You've disrespected them by serving them cheap gossip when you had the chance to offer real substance." Jimmy glanced toward the production team, visibly unsettled, but no rescue was coming. Arnold's gaze swept across the studio. Millions of people are dying from pollution, from preventable diseases linked to climate change, and you dismiss it as a little documentary. You trivialize the suffering of millions to stir up scandal. Jimmy's attempt at a comeback fizzled out before it even left his lips. Arnold's tone shifted again, quieter, deadlier. "Jimmy, I'm not here to be your punching bag. I'm not here to be your clickbait. I am here to make a difference. Something you wouldn't understand." Jimmy's jaw worked furiously as he struggled to respond, but the audience was no longer on his side. Murmurs of agreement rolled through the crowd, some audibly supporting Arnold, others openly glaring at the host. "You're used to playing games, Jimmy," Arnold concluded, voice gaining force. "But tonight, you picked the wrong man to play with." Before Jimmy could respond, Arnold turned, his shoulders squared, his stride purposeful as he began walking off the stage. "Arnold," Jimmy called out, panic breaking through his forced calm. "Don't leave like this. Sit down. We can fix this." Arnold paused, turned back, and with piercing intensity, delivered the final blow. "Fix this?" he said, his voice slicing through the tension. "You can't fix what you destroyed." Jimmy stood behind his desk, helpless as the Austrian oak exited without a glance back. The room stood still, absorbing the magnitude of what they'd just witnessed. Arnold's footsteps echoed across the studio floor, each step feeling heavier than the last. Behind him, the set was frozen in stunned silence. The cameras tracked his movements as he cut through the studio like a force of nature, every inch of his frame radiating controlled fury. Jimmy stood behind his desk, arms limp at his sides, his usual bravado completely drained. For the first time in his career, he was not the one in control. The audience sat in stunned quiet, phones raised, capturing what would be replayed endlessly across social media in the coming days. Even Jimmy's own crew, camera operators, producers, and floor managers, stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let history unfold. Jimmy found his voice, but it came out smaller, less assured. "Arnold, come on. You don't have to make a scene." There was a desperation in his tone now, cracks forming in the carefully constructed persona of the seasoned talk show host. Arnold stopped in his tracks. His broad shoulders shifted slightly as he turned, his expression steeled. "Make a scene?" His voice was cold, cutting through the still air like a knife. "Jimmy, you made this scene the moment you turned a conversation about saving lives into a cheap ratings ploy." Jimmy tried to flash a smile, but it came out crooked, forced. "It's just entertainment, Arnold. Everyone knows how these shows work." Arnold's glare intensified, his next words sharp and deliberate. "No, Jimmy. This is not entertainment. You used deception to get me here. You wasted a rare opportunity to talk about something that actually matters to millions of people. You turned an important cause into a circus. That's not entertainment, that's exploitation." The crowd stirred, whispers rippling through the rows of seats. Jimmy was visibly shaken now, the usual smirk wiped clean off his face. He gripped the edge of his desk, as if it could keep him grounded in the wreckage of his own interview. Arnold's voice dropped, quieter but far more menacing. "And let's get one thing very clear. You will never get another chance to do this to me, or anyone I care about again." Jimmy swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing awkwardly. "Arnold, look, maybe things got a little heated. I get it. Let's sit back down, reset, talk about the documentary." Arnold's laugh was short, bitter. "You had that chance, Jimmy. You threw it away for gossip. You showed your true colors. There's no coming back from this." He turned once more, making his way toward the backstage curtain where his publicist and security detail stood waiting, their faces tight with unease. Jimmy's voice cracked as he tried again, more desperate than before. "Arnold, think about the fans watching. Think about your message." Arnold stopped dead in his tracks, slowly pivoting on his heel. The cameras zoomed in, every viewer glued to their screens. His eyes narrowed, his voice dropping to a lethal quiet. "Think about the fans?" He shook his head in disbelief. "You insult their intelligence. You think they can't see through this? You think they can't tell when a show has no respect for them, for its guests, or for the issues that matter?" Jimmy tried to stammer out a response, but Arnold didn't let him. "You used them as a shield tonight, Jimmy. You played them for fools, just like you tried to play me. But the difference is, they can walk away from your nonsense just like I am right now." The crowd reacted this time. A ripple of applause started from the back rows, growing louder, sharper. People stood, clapping, supporting Arnold's stance, his refusal to be demeaned for cheap entertainment. Jimmy's face flushed a deep crimson, beads of sweat rolling down his temple. He shook his head, gripping his cue cards with white knuckles. "Arnold, you're blowing this out of proportion." Arnold took a few steps forward, towering over the host's desk from across the stage. His voice was thunderous now, filled with righteous fury. "No, Jimmy. You're the one who minimized real issues, insulted your guest, and lied to your audience. And tonight, everyone saw it." The applause grew, pockets of the audience rising to their feet. Jimmy was losing his crowd, his studio, his credibility, all in real time, and he knew it. Arnold turned, this time without pause, striding off the stage, pushing through the curtain as cameras followed him until the very last moment. His exit wasn't just a walk-off. It was a statement, a declaration that there were still lines in Hollywood you simply don't cross. The studio lights dimmed awkwardly, the music sting failing to mask the awkwardness on stage. Jimmy stood behind his desk, eyes darting, lost for words, his cue cards useless in his trembling hands. Finally, he cleared his throat, voice weak, forced. "Well, we'll be right back after this commercial break." But even as the show cut to black, the damage was done. The control Jimmy once wielded over his narrative was shattered. The footage would dominate headlines, social media, and late-night analysis for weeks to come. Backstage, Arnold's publicists swarmed him. Reporters shouted questions, but Arnold ignored them all. His stride was firm, his eyes forward, his resolve unshaken. For millions watching at home, it was clear. This wasn't just a television meltdown, it was a reckoning. A public dismantling of a media personality by one of Hollywood's most iconic legends. And in the days that followed, Jimmy Kimmel wouldn't just be answering for a bad interview. He'd be answering for the very integrity of his platform. As Arnold disappeared through the curtain, the energy backstage shifted dramatically. Crew members scrambled, producers whispered urgently into headsets, and security personnel maintained a tight formation around the star. But Arnold didn't slow his pace. His stride was purposeful, his head held high, while chaos swirled behind him. Cameras caught his retreat, but Arnold refused to glance back even once. Meanwhile, back on the set, Jimmy remained standing awkwardly at his desk, adjusting his tie and forcing an uneasy smile. The studio audience sat in awkward silence, many glancing at each other, uncertain how to react. The energy had drained from the room, replaced by a thick tension. Jimmy attempted to lighten the mood, muttering a weak joke, but it fell flat. The red light on the camera faded, signaling a cut to commercial, but the damage had already been done. In the production control room, executives were in full crisis mode. Phones rang, emails pinged, and decisions were made in real time about how to handle the rapidly spiraling situation. No one had ever witnessed a guest so publicly confront and walk out on Jimmy Kimmel, let alone someone of Arnold Schwarzenegger's stature. They weren't just facing an awkward segment. They were witnessing the collapse of a carefully curated reputation. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation flooded social media. Fans posted reactions, media outlets dissected every second of the exchange, and hashtags like #ArnoldWalksOut and #KimmelExposed began trending worldwide. Viewers weren't waiting for the network's sanitized response. They had seen everything unfold live, unfiltered and raw. Backstage, Arnold's publicist tried to speak, but Arnold cut her off with a raised hand. "No statements," he said firmly, his accent sharp. "No apologies, no backpedaling." The world saw exactly what happened. He walked straight to the exit, where a black SUV was waiting. The crew parted like the Red Sea, their eyes lowered, some out of respect, others out of embarrassment. Inside the studio, Jimmy was left to grapple with the fallout. When the cameras came back from commercial break, he attempted to brush off the incident with a quip, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. He fumbled through the rest of the episode, visibly unsettled. The audience remained stiff, their energy drained after witnessing the very public dismantling of their host. Later that night, entertainment news outlets were ablaze. Clips from the confrontation aired repeatedly, while pundits debated whether Jimmy had crossed a line. Prominent journalists criticized the host's tactics, accusing him of abandoning journalistic integrity for cheap sensationalism. Others applauded Arnold for standing his ground, calling his walkout a masterclass in composure and principle. Arnold, meanwhile, stayed silent. He didn't release a statement. He didn't do follow-up interviews. He let the footage speak for itself. His refusal to engage further only amplified his stance. He wasn't interested in petty media battles. He was interested in real issues that affected real people. Within 24 hours, the network faced unprecedented backlash. Advertisers expressed concern, fans flooded comment sections with criticism, and even fellow celebrities voiced support for Arnold's handling of the situation. Prominent Hollywood figures tweeted out their solidarity, calling out the toxicity of ambush journalism and praising Arnold for calling it out publicly. Behind closed doors, network executives convened emergency meetings. The show's producers were grilled, and Jimmy was pressured to address the backlash in a more sincere fashion. The following evening, when The Tonight Show aired, Jimmy sat under dimmed lights, his tone noticeably more somber. Gone was the smug grin, replaced with a forced humility. "Last night," Jimmy began, "things didn't go the way I'd hoped. I thought we were having an open conversation, but clearly, I crossed a line, and for that, I apologize to Arnold and to the viewers." His words seemed rehearsed, his delivery hollow, but it was a concession he had no choice but to make. However, the apology did little to quell the storm. Fans and critics saw it for what it was: damage control. The headlines continued, the clips circulated, and Jimmy's reputation took a significant blow. Analysts pointed out the hypocrisy of a host known for mocking others crumbling when confronted by someone who wouldn't tolerate disrespect. Arnold, meanwhile, emerged stronger. The controversy catapulted his documentary into the public eye, with millions more viewing it than originally anticipated. He used the attention not to fan the flames of drama, but to redirect focus to climate change and the issues he cared about. His social media platforms spoke solely about his cause, ignoring the circus surrounding the interview, which only earned him more respect. In the weeks that followed, The Tonight Show's ratings dipped. Viewership polls reflected a growing dissatisfaction with the program's tone and approach. Rumors swirled of internal shakeups and rebranding efforts as the network scrambled to recover. Jimmy's once bulletproof image had been tarnished, the sheen of late-night invincibility cracked. For Arnold, the walkout became a defining moment, not of weakness, but of unwavering principle. In a town where image often triumphs over substance, he He had reminded the world that integrity still mattered. That even under the brightest studio lights, a person could stand tall, speak truth to sensationalism, and refuse to be reduced to a headline. And for the viewers, it was a wake-up call. A reminder that not everything served to them in the name of entertainment was harmless. That sometimes the person walking off stage was doing so not out of ego, but out of respect, for themselves, for the truth, and for the people watching. Arnold never returned to The Tonight Show. He didn't need to. He had made his statement, and the world had listened. If you enjoyed this intense showdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more explosive celebrity confrontations you won't see anywhere else. What's your take? Was Arnold right to walk out, or was Jimmy just doing his job? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and join the debate. Don't miss the next shocking Hollywood moment. Turn on the notification bell now,